Welcome to Identiverse 2025. We're here recording live from the CyberRisk TV studio on the expo floor at the Mandalay Bay Conference Center in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview is Treb Ryan, General Manager at Cubeless. Welcome, Treb.
Hey, thanks for having me, Adrian.
Excited about the conversation, especially because you're giving away free stuff.
Yeah, I know. We're kind of excited about that too. I've been looking around the floor, and it seems like we're the only ones who are doing this. So It's always nice to have a little space to yourself. It's also nice that we think there's a real reason this needs to be free for people, and there's a lot of opportunity when you allow people to start using ID in their businesses and in their organizations. It doesn't have to be just a business, where they start using single sign-on and multi-factor authentication.
So before we go too deep, what's free?
So
what are you giving away?
The basic free offering from us is what we call Cubeless Verify. It was part of our product that was doing the remote workforce. And we realized this was the area that people were most interested in. It was where they had the most pain points.
Yeah.
And Cubeless Verify is very simply a single sign-on multi-factor authentication system that you go in and sign up for right online. You do it today after you hear this video at cubeless.io. You go in there, you invite your users, you start setting up your apps, and you start assigning those out, and you have single sign-on capabilities for any app that handles SAML, and standard one-time password multi-factor authentication, either with our mobile app or if you're using a Google Authenticator. All those pieces are included. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and it's kind of the inverse of what we're used to seeing in the market.
Yeah,
usually SSO costs you extra.
You see it in two sides. One is, it's always been an enterprise product. And so to take it from the app provider side, the last company I was with, when I first came on, they had just created an SSO integration. So it's 2020 is when you start seeing even smaller apps put those in place. And they immediately wanted to put it in our enterprise tier. And I'm like, why? It doesn't cost us anything. And the more people who we can get using our app, the more they'll do. We did error management, so we'll see more errors and we'll see more things if we get people on it more easily. But the reason it goes into enterprise is because that's the only people in the past who needed SSO, right?
Yeah.
When all these companies were created, you weren't going out to some 25-person accounting shop and saying, let's use SSO. You were going out to big organizations that had sophisticated implementations and wanted to put it in place. But with today's market, really, as we say, identity is the center now of all security. With stuff like zero trust and everything, the easiest way to make sure you're secure is not to do it through the traditional forms. It's to get someone's ID down and then give them the appropriate roles and access based on that ID. But that is something that is only available to people who have the money to pay for enterprise packages. And when it should be available to any company, and it shouldn't be, there's a barrier to that, because by adopting that, they're going to have a whole new world of things they can do that makes their life easier, as well as more secure in the way they manage the team. And that allows them to do all these new things we're talking about that you see here in the show today, because they have the basics done and they're already in place. They've got IDs for their people, and they're able to do that regardless of the size of their organization or the quality, the depth of their IT staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. So it does seem counterintuitive when you pitch it that way, that making SSO the only available and the most expensive option, that's a barrier to adoption for your product.
And it makes, it's very hard to do this in the beginning, right? When the first SSO applications came out, and I was working a lot of SaaS, we were banging our head against the wall for single sign-on from like 2007, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knew this was where it was going, but the ability to actually create something that worked with multiple applications was quite difficult, and the cost associated with that was quite difficult. But this is at a point now where these are table stakes. We had, when we originally built our product for the remote workforce, we built on Auth0, which is, fine. You can go into some of the strengths and weaknesses in there.
Yeah.
But the guy, he says, we want you to sign up for 50,000 users. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'll be lucky if I have 500 users. This app just is coming out today. And, that idea of both not only just the cost, but the enterprise sales method of going about that makes it very difficult for organizations who don't have the resources in terms of dollars, or the resources in terms of experts, right? You know, the vast majority of the people who are now seeing SSO as an important part of business, because maybe they're being required to, because they do a finance, they're an outsourced accounting firm, and they're getting asked more and more that they need to have these security pieces in place. They probably have an outsourced IT firm who's working for the outsourced accounting firm, and if that IT firm is a security guy, they probably don't have an identity person, right? And so the first barrier was the cost, and the second barrier is this stuff is hard. It's still so hard. I think we want to make sure that it's easier. I say
hard in what way?
Like just take for anybody who knows this. There's something called an entity ID, right? There are 13 different terms for entity ID that every single application uses a different term for that. And then there's entity IDP, entity ID, and service provider entity ID. And for each of these things, you have to become versed in each application, what they're saying it is, and what it's called by their customer. Now we have some fun things coming forward about doing what we call a translator, but this simple piece in there. One of the simple things we do is when you see the documentation, it tells you all the different things it could be called. So when you're looking at someone who's using client ID instead of IDP, server entity ID, you'll know that client ID is a synonym for this, right? And by the way, signed assertions and documents, and it's crazy how little standardization there is, or even how you get the metadata across is different in almost every single app. So making this, there's someone who can say, here's how it works, and here's how you should get it into the next piece. Also, a lot of it we found it was very overcomplicated. Here's 18,000 knobs and dials. I had a hard time with my own engineers. We don't need to have all those knobs and dials in there. We just need 90% of this is going to be these 5 switches that the customer needs to know. Just put those up there. But what if they need something else? Well, put that down in advanced. But if you put all this information where there's, take a key cloak where there's 5,000 different, you don't know which the important ones are. What are the ones I'm supposed to have? What are the ones I'm not? So you need to make this something that is more intuitive for people who don't spend all day in identity. And on top of that, how you get signed up. This is much more like signing up for Slack than it is like signing up for a traditional IDP. You get an email invite, you put it out there. When you sign up, you just go in there, do your MFA first, because we need to know you, so you can then become the admin, and then just start dropping your apps in. It's much simpler than a traditional environment. It has flexibility? Does it have the complexity that some of the more enterprise apps are? But no, that's A, something that people don't need in our environment, and B, often can be something that stops adoption because they get overwhelmed in trying to set this up.
No, that totally makes sense. And it's, it's a constant battle with, should the product be simple or, should the product be powerful, right? Powerful's every time I see somebody market a tool as powerful, I'm like, okay, so I need to go to training before I can use it. Right.
And I come up from the SaaS world and then cloud software, and you see this over and over and over again. What starts as a simple application by necessity gets more and more complicated over time. And that's a real thing, because as the customers become more sophisticated and as they grow, then you're going to have to add in more things to take the larger needs of a large organization. And most good apps will start growing from people buying online and getting their freemium product to more sophisticated long-term users. The risk of that is you can't start there, right? You can't start with something that's requires a lot of training and buy-in just to get up and running, because in a product-led growth where you get people to sign up and use it, that friction you put into place is a lost user. People will drop out of the system over and over and over again, while the real key is to get them using it as quickly as possible and seeing success on that, because that's what it drives adoption, and that's what gets people using your system.
No, totally. And it's almost like more art than science, and trying to figure out like what is simple enough, right? But then doesn't. Not simple in a way that they're not going to do the important things.
And there's tools out there today. It's a little easier. They're not as good as they say they are, but where you can see where a user, say, drops out of the process. I think some of the even simpler ideas is we have on every page when you're in the app, there's feedback form. As much as I like to think that all 120 apps that we have just out of the gate, or the custom, you can put any other app on top of that, is going to have the right things in for a config. Unfortunately, I don't have the money to sign up for 125 enterprise software license applications, and so you want to have someone going, hey, I'm stuck here, and plus, obviously, the regular customer success support, the people who are there. That's why in the business, by the way, customer success is seen in both sales and support, because the more the customers use it, the more they grow, and then the more chance you have of getting revenue from it.
Yeah, and it's how's it been to scale that up? Because free product, you're encouraging feedback. Like I imagine, for that process to be successful, you got to get back in touch pretty quickly, or they're going to lose interest. You're gonna lose them. So how's it been scaling that?
There's better tools for it today to start getting than there used to be in the past. A lot of in-app capabilities. I won't tell you how it's worked on this one so far, but I can tell you how I've done it in past ones, and it works exceedingly well. The better you can respond and help the customer get to they want, it is the closest thing to magic. If your success rep is calling them and not talking about upgrading, but just saying, here's how you can use this more effectively, the relationship changes fantastically, because they look at this as, we're helping you do this more. Now, when you do it more, we're going to get paid more in the long run, whether it's conversion ratios or if you have someone who's on a paid plan where you can go up to it. So you have to have that capability, but it's not as overarching, it's not as tough as it used to be. And, we're a little early on for us, but there's obviously a bunch of new tools around AI and those pieces where on our application, AI is used to create automated configurations. We've already done that on a few. It's not something we're announcing yet, but in those places, you can also do that, obviously, to gather information from a client that you can even feed back into those AI agents and say, hey, this is the feedback we're getting. Use that as a learning model for making a new configuration, as well as giving it to, of course, the standard piece, which our guy Ian over here is going to send you a message chat or send you an email and check in on how you're doing.
So if this, the base product is free, what is the monetization strategy here?
And I want to say it is going to continue to be free. The single sign-on, and what we see as core elements around that.
Sure.
So, example, our authentication right now is Multi Factor Authentication. We're close to releasing a passkey as well. To me, that is a core to using the product. The easier you make it for people, and the more secure you make it, the more likely they're going to grow. So I don't want to add friction to that process. You'll see us as we add more and more of these automated AI integrations. Those are going to be free. What are they going to buy from us then? I'm not 100% sure. That's the nature. One of the natures of doing a product-led growth company. We have the remote security product. We might see people move into that, but we have some ideas about. SSO costs a lot of money besides just the cost of the provider, us, the IDP, the cost of the technical expertise to manage this in your identity shop, your IT, your security people. There's also costs in adopting it and integrating with other applications. And so our guess is there's an opportunity for us to be able to reduce your costs with other applications. But that's a guess. And the best thing is, we'll know a lot more when we end up adding, with the idea is, with the free offering, we should have enough users who are actually saying, this is what I really want. And this is what I want built in, and this is what I'd be willing to actually, is valuable enough for me to pay. And we're not talking, this is something for us that looks like $5 a user, not $10. This is not identity should not get to be prohibitively expensive. I mean, heck, half the time with the SSO tax, you have to pay more than $5 or $10 just to get it into your organization. And those are things where we think there might be some opportunities, but we'll find out. I have to ask you at the next conference.
I imagine with the data that you gather from that, it's going to kind of inform what direction you go in. That data is going to be interesting.
It's a slow process as opposed to doing sales. You don't get quite to the revenue as fast as you do when you do sales. But if you've done this for a while and you're willing to have the patience, unfortunately we're part of a bigger company, so we're an independent division, which does, by the way, just outsource support. It's called Mod Squad, and they have gig people. They were one of the first gig companies all over the world who log in and do support, and support where the original security product and where identity became so important, because you don't know where anybody's going to be logging in from. So ensuring they're them is the most important piece to doing the rest of security in the environment. And so that's why we got into the identity, those identity pieces. But that, we know where we're going to scale with that, but being able to talk to those people gave us the ideas of what we made sure we had to do for this product, from day one. Also, it was a nice advantage to come in, I've done, ground zero startups. I'm usually cloud-based software to like 10 million is where my strengths are. And I happen to have a strength in converting services into software in those places. But I will say, having done this a million times, it's nice to have been part of a bigger organization. It gives us some expertise, especially around actually security. We do have a dedicated identity management guy, and get some expectations on there. It also means that we get things like, even when we first came up with the first iteration of Cubeless Verify last year, as the bigger product, it was SOC 2 certified in 3 months. Partly because we know how to write apps that are secure in and of itself, and we have an environment that people understand how to run that environment so you can get your certifications. That's a real load off of that, because of course whenever you're doing a security product, you have to no one's going to buy you because you say we have SOC 2, but they might not buy you if you don't, even if it's free. If they're putting their identities out there, they need to be confident that this is done in an area that's been repeated before, that's gone through the types of audits necessary to get their stuff onto it. So as much as we talk about price and easy use as our primary two pieces into there, or no price and ease of use, it's got to be reliable too, and that's kind of the third tenet of the organization.
Identity's pretty important.
Yeah, it is. And I did the back end of a lot of SaaS applications, included the security piece on there. It can never get you another customer, but it can lose you a lot of customers extremely quickly. Sure. And it's something that you need to go in with confidence that, this is an application that was built the right way, it's put on the right types of infrastructure, and has been proved through, even in the initial days, to go through the kind of audits that are difficult for even sometimes, mature companies. Maybe often more difficult for mature companies, because we wrote it the way to pass that to begin with, right? We understood what we were doing. Why mature companies often have to go back and change a lot of things in order to get that kind of certification.
Yeah, free's great, but free also becomes a liability.
Yes.
Yeah,
you don't want to lose that identity. We're fortunately not dealing with much in the way of PII, but that's the number one thing we know we need to protect against. But even from an identity perspective, and there is a higher level of necessity when you have a single point of entry into these things. It's why on top of just easy use for the users, you'll see passkeys. MFA is great, and for the people we're talking to, it's one-time passwords is the 99.99 when they're at nothing. It's really so much better than what they already have. But passkeys, we know, are even one step beyond that, right? And so those pieces will allow us to not only add additional ease of use for the user, because I think we all prefer using passkeys and one-time passwords, but it will also give the company even a greater level of feeling of security that those users aren't going to get phished or hacked.
Yeah. Good stuff, Treb. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's really a pleasure talking to you. I'm excited. I'm excited to see you guys soon. We'll tell you all the new things that people have started asking us for.
To find out more about Cubeless, you can visit securityweekly.com/CubelessIDV. And for all Identiverse 2025 coverage, you can visit securityweekly.com/IDV. Thanks again, Treb.
Thanks, Adrian. Have a good one.
Yeah.